recording and jumping us to Facebook, and then I'll let everyone in the waiting room. All right. Hello, all. We're going to get started. Thank you for joining us today. We have a great conversation about caseload, about advocating for new APE positions. We have two excellent speakers with us today. We have Brad Weiner, who is the APE coordinator at Fairfax County in Virginia. And we have Jessica Baines, who is a APE specialist at Irvine Unified School District here in California. So on behalf of NCPEID, I want to thank everyone for joining us on this monthly collaborative. Each month we have a new topic. The topics really range depending on what's is of interest to APE teachers and APE higher ed professionals. As always, this meeting is recorded, so we're live streaming on NCPEID Facebook. It'll be posted on NCPEID YouTube and potentially posted on the What's New in APE podcast. So thanks all for joining. And first up to talk about caseload considerations, we've got Brad. So go ahead and you've got the stage.
Thank you. It's certainly good to be here to chat about the caseloads. This is certainly a conversation that's been going on for a number of years. As an adaptive physical educator for 18 years, my caseload certainly fluctuated, and I had high numbers in certain years. And certainly I know there's a conversation on Facebook right now, and people are putting out their numbers. Some numbers are kind of way up there at concerning rates. So I'm here to kind of show you from somebody that's a supervisor that was an adaptive physical education teacher, now at the supervisor role, something that I came up with to kind of support my staff in having a conversation towards caseloads, because certainly I don't want them to be overworked or burnt out. Teachers burn out quite quickly when they have overwork, and I certainly want to keep that in the forefront of my mind, because searching for adaptive physical education teachers is quite difficult sometimes. So before I came to the county, they had this formula around number of minutes that they were servicing students, and they added minutes for paperwork. And at times, some of the staff would come to me and indicate that they felt that their minutes were too high. But from somebody that was coming from outside the county, it was hard for me to understand what that really meant, because we're looking at a generic number and comparing that number to other people. But I know that everything is individualized. The students that I work with have different needs than the students that somebody else works with. The schools that I go to are at a different distance than the schools that somebody else goes to. So how do we really look at a caseload based off of somebody's individualized work? So it took me some time, but I came up with something that I'm not going to say it's perfect, but it is something that opens up conversations where now if a teacher is concerned, they can come to me. We can either fill this out together, or they can fill it out, and it opens up, I think, a truthful conversation. And if they are overworked, then it kind of shows where I can provide support and how I can provide support to them. So This is the teacher workload form. Uh, we break up what their responsibilities are. So we're not just looking at number of students. We're not just looking at paperwork or schools, but we are looking at across the board. Now, one thing that we know is as a teacher, there's 9,000 minutes in a month in contract. So that's kind of the number that I'm starting with. Certainly, as we go through this, we're going to be looking at equity, but in terms of equality, it is 9,000 minutes as that is the contract. So we have paperwork responsibilities, IEP meetings, evaluations, travel, teaching. This is direct teaching time. Everybody gets 30 minutes of lunch a day for lunch, collaboration and planning. Now, for teachers, they get 1,800 minutes for planning time in their contract. Now, the teachers that are in the itinerant teachers that work for me, they are engaged in planning, but they are not writing the lesson plans as in depth. And so they do a lot of collaboration. So when it comes to planning and collaboration, for my department, they put that together to equal their planning time that would be in contract. So to
Brett,
get a
oh,
better,
sorry, Brad. There's already a couple questions on Facebook Live. Number one, of course, teachers asking, can they get access to this? And number two, does it have formulas built into it?
so we're going to fill this out together. There are formulas because as you can see, there's task and it says low, 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 low. Lunch is good because I automatically have that in there that everybody gets 30 minutes. So right now, 100% of their time is for lunch because we haven't filled anything else out. Certainly when we are done, I can get it to you, Dr. Bittner, and you can share it out or whatnot.
Yeah,
Um,
perfect. We will, yeah, share it on the NCPEID website resources. Thank you.
yeah. Okay, so now we can deep dive into what explain what the work responsibilities are. And so if I'm a teacher and I want to know what do I put under paperwork, now I can look at, okay, there's data collection, right, report writing, IEP development, emails, there's a list of things. And so again, this is not this is something just to open up conversation. So what I'm doing is I'm giving my teachers 30 minutes per student per month. And then that's a combined paperwork. And for IEP meetings, they're getting 15 minutes per student, and then that combines because we don't go to IEP meetings for every single student every single month. And then evaluations, 90 minutes per school. So if I had 3 schools, it would be 270 minutes per month. Now, we're not doing evaluations at every single school every single month. Evaluations are scattered. So there may be heavier months than some months, but and then the travel time, I tell them that they can use Google Maps to calculate their times between schools. And then the teaching time is the time that they are specifically with the students. So the time that they're in the classroom with the students, working with the students. And then the planning time is, like I said before, there's a list there. Teachers get 1,800 minutes. So I'm saying at minimum, you should combine 1,800 minutes between collaboration and planning. Certainly, if there's time left over, you can put more towards collaboration or planning. So what we can do now is we can fill this out. Uh, I'm not going to put 120 something minutes, students, because I think that is rare. For my program, I like to average it between 35 and 40. There are people in the program that do have more than 40. And so that's when we look at this and we look at, uh, again, are they working over 9,000 minutes or not? But I'm going to pretend I have 42 students. Jessica, would that be a fair number? Or Jessica, do you want to tell me how many students you have? Don't be 100.
No, I actually, my current caseload this year, oh, I'm a rarity because I have a lot
Okay,
of
you want to put
consults.
out 47 students?
Yeah, I would say in average across California, I feel like 50 is kind of a good average number.
Okay, so we're gonna say 50 students.
Yeah, and 51 is the average from the research by like Arusnikova and Kelly, that when they did a national survey to see how many, like what the caseload was. So that's kind of right on with those
Good job.
findings.
Thank you, Jessica. So I'm gonna do 50 times 30, and so now 50 students within my program would be considered high. So you're working on a lot of paper. You should be working on a lot of paperwork, right? Um, and then your IEP meetings. So you're going to a lot of IEP meetings because you have a lot of students. And now, did you have any average number of schools?
This year I have 6.
So you have 6. Okay, so that would be a lot for our program also. We are going high. And I'm sure you have a lot of travel time then. I'm going to have a feeling that you're working more than the teacher contract. I'm telling you, Jessica. All right. Um,
Do you base this off of the California um like teacher recommendations for like their basic teacher contract for like
so
hours
in
per day?
Virginia, it's 9,000 minutes, and that is
Okay.
based off of a 7.5 hour day.
Okay.
Okay, so travel time is 30 minutes in the car every day. You're probably in the car longer than that. I don't know how when you have so many students, but is it fair to say 30 minutes, 45 minutes a day in the car? So I'll put
Yes.
600 if we're doing it in the 30 minutes a day.
Because you only track travel between sites, right? Not
Right, not
going
from home.
to, yeah.
Right,
Okay.
right. Okay, and as much as possible, we try to keep the schools clustered together so there's less travel time. But certainly within our program, there are people traveling more than others. Some schools are like right across the street from each other. Uh, Now teaching time, we typically like in the direct teaching time with students about 3,400 minutes. Now, certainly we can look at that being more, but as you can see, now if I put 900, how do we see it? Yeah. So it's close, but if you have 50 students, based off this, you're most likely going to be over your 9,000 minutes. And now this is where we have to open up a conversation to, do I have somebody help you with those evaluations? Because I know you have a lot of evaluations. Do I have to, have some coverage, send somebody to a school so that they take some students away? So is this perfect? No. Does it open up a conversation that could be honest? I believe so. And so that's kind of how this runs. And teachers can fill this out at any point in time. But that's why I try to keep the caseload between 35 to 40, 42 students, just because I want to make sure that they are building that relationship with the student, that they have time to do the paperwork, that they have time to go to the IEP meetings. Because with all this, if you're going to all these IEP meetings, then are you servicing your students? Because we know that it's required to go to your meetings, even though your administrator probably will say you don't have to. Across the country, a lot of administrators say, go service your students, you don't have to go to the meeting, but we know it's required to go to the meeting. So it creates an issue when you have high students. That person with 100+ students, I'm going to guess that they're not servicing students. They are going around and kind of supporting. At least that's my hope, because I don't know what they're doing. And
Right.
it's
And
very hard to build a relationship if you have 100-something students with IEPs.
right, just of your 50, are you doing consult for any of those? Or are they all direct service?
No, there's quite a few consult, but like I said, my caseload's unique. because I cover our NPS caseloads. So that covers some of my consult students. On average, most of us have about 45, I believe, direct. I think that's the average across our department. Don't quote me. We just hired 2 new ones, so we redistributed caseloads this year. So it's a little different than it was last year. Last year, we were a little higher.
And this form doesn't take in consideration of if you're directly working with a student versus if you're collaborating and just doing consultation type work. So in that sense, if I was to have this, and what I will do is I will send this to Dr. Bittner as a make a copy. So when you get this, it would force you to make a copy, in which case you'd be able to change this to adjust to your situation. And then you could put different things to be consultation wise.
Brad, this is so great in that it is a really nice starting point. I think that's what a lot of people are clamoring for, is just a starting point to determine caseload. I know that it's a huge issue across the US and we don't have enough of these starting points. Okay, yeah, I'm getting we've got a lot joining us on Facebook today. I'm trying to multitask.
Yeah, and this is really just to open up a conversation. It's not perfect.
Right.
I would love to know if there was a way to make this perfect, but everything is so individualized. But it also, I like that it kind of tells me where my percentage is across the board. So the in the blue is a percentage of time that I'm putting towards something. And so you can see that my collaboration and my planning are a little bit low. My paperwork is like 16.32% of my time is in front of paperwork.
Yeah,
It's nice
most
that
of the question,
37% is teaching. Yeah.
Most of the questions are like, yeah, can I get a copy? And yes, I promise everyone we'll post a copy where you can make a copy of this on the NCPEID website. I'll also put it on the live post on Facebook. So that way you could go back to the live post and get it from there as well. Huge thank you to Brad. I think this is a little bit unique, and maybe let's answer any or ask any questions for Brad now rather than waiting till Jess goes, because this is, yeah, maybe a little bit unique of a format compared to what we might usually do. Other questions on this kind of caseload consideration? Another one, how can we advocate perhaps using this to administrators to, oh, Diane, talk about the perfect segue, because that's what Jess is going to talk about next. Jess is going to chat about exactly that at Irvine Unified School District, how they advocated for more APE teachers. One question here from Facebook. Can you use recess time as service time due to constraint of schedule?
So I would not use recess time as service time, as we are a service that aligns directly to the curriculum, and we are doing our service, within the standards of the curriculum. So if we're at recess, then we're not really following that curriculum, that physical education curriculum, grade level standards.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Brad. And at least in California, where I'm from, you can't count recess time as PE minutes. Okay. Brad, thank you so much. This is really, really fantastic. And thank you for getting this conversation started about caseload and the consideration of, yeah, what is appropriate for your district.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Oh, Jess had a question you want to ask. You can go ahead and ask Brad.
Okay. So in our department, like we tend to start out low, and then, because we expect growth in our caseloads. How do you account for that with your tracking sheet?
If we are to start out low,
Yeah, so like for instance, like we start out around 40, 45, but we usually end with around 55-ish, sometimes 60, depending on the school site. So how do you account for the growth across the caseloads when you're using that data sheet?
Yeah, so the main focus of this is to have a conversation with a teacher. And so if a teacher's starting low and they were filling this out, then I would say put more time towards your collaboration and your planning piece in the beginning of the year as you are building relationships with teachers, building relationships. So get to that 9,000 minutes if you're, under. And then as the year goes on and we know it's going to increase, we can fill this out again, relook at it, and then have this conversation again. And if you are really high and we have the ability within our program, we're going to support you. Now, if everybody in our program is really high, that is where we go to the advocacy where I try not to put extra work on, but maybe I would ask everybody to fill this out. I would take it together. I would put all that information together, and then I would send it above and saying, we have over 3,000 adaptive physical education students that we service. We have this number of itinerants, and this is the amount, the percentage of my itinerants that are over that 9,000 minutes related to their contract. So then I talk about them being burned out and I go that whole route. So that's where this helps me collect data so that I can put it down together and then advocate to those higher up. But if they are in the beginning of the year, if they're not meeting that 9,000 minutes, that's okay. Because I'll just say, put more time towards the planning um and the collaboration.
Fred, this is great. I tell it all the time to my students, data drives decisions, and this is a data-based decision. I think that conversation needs to be had a lot more when it comes to determining caseload. We've got to make these decisions based on data, not just I think or I feel. Okay, Jess, you're up next. Thanks for sharing
Yes.
about, your kind of background there at Irvine Unified School District and how you all advocated for more APE positions.
Yes. Well, this all started before I even got here. So my lead, Laura, was supposed to join me today, but unfortunately she got called into a meeting, so she was unable to join. But I talked to her a lot about the history of it. And it was before I got hired. They were trying to figure out how to better advocate for themselves within the department to get more help because they were noticing that they needed more help. And so they started developing these data sheets to help track so that they could use the information from it with our boss to help advocate for the position. So Laura and Danielle, they did most of the development of these sheets. So these are not things that I've developed. These are things that I have used since being hired here in Irvine. And at first it will seem a little overwhelming because you're like, this is a lot. But actually, once you get into the routine of doing it and you incorporate it into your daily routines, it's actually really easy. And I mean, our department will be the first one to stand up 10 times over and tell you it's worth it. It's worth every minute putting the data into these sheets because again, this year we were actually shocked. We got more new hires and we weren't really expecting all the new hires that we got, but we are very grateful for it. And it's because of the data.
Could you share with your numbers, like how many new APE positions did you get in the last, 5 or 6 years? Like you all have been kind of.
So since I've been here, our department, let's see, this is my 4th year here. No, my 5th. It's going on my 5th. So we've hired, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Our department is almost doubled since I've been
That's
here. Yeah.
amazing.
And it's
Yes.
all because of the data sheets. Yeah. So it's really great. I'm going to show you, these are just drafts that I have been allowed to share with you guys. So this is our main one. This tracks our caseload numbers across the year. So we each get a line in here. The D stands for direct, the C stands for consult, and the T stands for total. So what we do is we use this to monitor the overall growth of our caseload from September to June. And we'll see flux up and down depending on, if students exit out of services, or depending on all the new students who either move in or qualify through an initial. So this is our caseload number document that we all go into and drop our numbers down on. And then this is a big one for us. So at the bottom, each tab is each individual APE teacher will get their own tab, and we track any canceled sessions that we cannot make up. And you'll see in here, we track all canceled sessions. However, like if we've offered a makeup and we've been able to make it up, we will note that in here. The biggest thing that we want to make sure we track are the sessions that we've canceled that we can't make up, because then we have to figure out how we can either get the makeups or we ask for help from our district to help us make sure we make up the sessions. But very simple. We put the date, the school site, the program, how many sessions we had to cancel. Some teachers will track by individual students. Some teachers will track based on their groupings for their schedule. So we all kind of do it a little unique, depending on our personal preferences. The big important thing is just to track any sessions we have to cancel and why we had to cancel them. So whether it be an IEP, an assessment, whether we got called to witness prep, whether we had to go to trial, things like that. The next thing we track, this one, we all track on the same sheet. So this tracks students who move into our district that already have services. So we track our initials on another sheet that I'll show you in a minute, but this one is specifically for students who move in already with services, because that shows growth different than initials, because these students are coming in and they already have services. They jump right onto our caseload, as opposed to an initial assessment where we have to go through the process of doing the assessment, going to the meeting, and proposing services if they qualify. This is our initials sheet. So this one, again, we all track on the same document together. And this one shows our overall growth just from initials. And last year, I think we completed 175 initials, I think it was, just for our department, just for last academic year. So we each put the student name, and then we put our name, the initial IEP date, so that we can track that, the school site, program, grade. ECLC is our early childhood learning center, so that's specifically for our preschool site, and then whether they qualified or if they did not qualify. And then when their services start, we like to put when the IEP is signed, we like to put the start date in there so we have it documented. And then any notes that we need. This is our IEP attendance. This is a big one for us because we're in Irvine and we attend a lot of IEP meetings. And so again, each of us at the bottom, we each have our own tab, and we all do it slightly different. This lovely asterisk column right here, this is our high profile checklist. So if it's a high profile family, we'll just check the check boxes. That way it allows the admin who look at these sheets to take into consideration the number of IEP meetings that we're attending for that family. Why? If the checkbox is checked, they'll know. But we have some students where we attend upwards of 4, 5, 6, 7 meetings a year just for that one student. So it's really important for us to track on here. And again, each of us track our IEP attendance slightly different. But what matters is that we get all of the meetings on the data sheets. And then
There's a question
Yes.
from Facebook with regard to the preschool, the ECLA center qualifying. Is that one person who's doing all of those, or is it several positions?
No, it's one person.
Ooh, okay.
Mhm. Yep. And then the last one is our dismissed or aged out. So these are all of our students who have been assessed and either exited from services or they've aged out of IATP, which is our adult transition program. So this allows us to track the decrease in numbers across our department as they're leaving because they no longer have services or they've aged out. So, and then
Great. So happy to see that you are providing services to what I call the bookends, meaning preschool and transition. That's so important, and oftentimes illegally get left out. And again, we absolutely can and should provide services for those populations. All right. Yeah, sorry, Jess, anything else to add?
Nope. Sorry, my lights went out. I'm in a
Oh.
classroom that the sensor's like way over in the corner, so I have to get up and walk across the room to get it to turn back on.
In the dark, all good. So is my life too. All right. Any questions for Jess and how they advocated for new APE positions? Or Brad, anything to add as well, since you're sitting in an admin role as well? I see one from Brian in the chat. More detail about how you dealt with admin to get more APE educators.
Do you want me to jump in first?
Sure, go for it.
So our lead, our admin above us, they take all the data from our sheets and they put it into a spreadsheet. That spreadsheet is shared with the leads of the SPED department, but also HR, because HR does most of the determination for hiring. And from my understanding, they take all of the data that's put into the spreadsheet and they calculate our growth and how many students have been exited, how many IEPs we've attended, like how many sessions we've had to cancel, and they put it all into their calculator. And that is what they use to determine how we are allowed to hire within our department. So Laura, our lead, who is going to be here today, and unfortunately she couldn't make it, she said that she works very closely with our boss and they put together all the numbers into the spreadsheet and then they turn that over to HR.
Brett, how does it work in your district?
My district certainly does have a formula to determine how much allocation I have towards adaptive physical education teachers. They are not putting as much time into the data. So this is something that I will have to advocate for. And the numbers that sometimes they may be playing off with are old numbers. And as we know, if I look at how many individuals have adapted physical education over the course of the 3 years that I've been there, it's constantly growing. But the allocation and the numbers that they have are still back a couple of years. So and I'm in a very large county, so there are a number of people that are within this process that I have to get to know and build those relationships with, but also it goes back to that data and collecting that data so that I have a force to go with. So at this point, I have increased the number of staff that I've ever had before. and we are fully staffed at this point. But the way that I've been able to increase is because in prior years, other areas would dive into adaptive physical education and take those teachers for other areas. And so I advocated as to, no, I need those positions. And so by keeping those positions, I've been able to increase the number of teachers that I have this year.
Okay, excellent. I have lots of questions. Jess, will you send your data sheets to me as well, and we'll get them posted in Facebook and on the NCPEID website. From Facebook, I think this is maybe to Jess or Brad. Do you age out at high school? Do you keep them through transition age? Do you write goals and minutes for adult services? So Jess or Brad, go ahead.
So I can speak that we are within the county, we are working to improve our ability to engage in that transition process. Again, there's a lot of history that we are trying to change within our county. In the past, students would receive adaptive physical education when they were taking a physical education for credit. And we know that that's not always the case, right? So there's a change in when students can receive adaptive physical education services. That's one thing that we are doing. And now we are looking to change how the content or what the content is being focused on, because we want to be part of that transition plan where students have a voice in what they're going to be working on, and then have a voice in their learning as to, okay, this is what I want to learn. This is how I'm going to get there. This is how much money I'm going to need. So engaging in that transition program itself. We are within our county, we are not at the level where we are writing transition plans beyond age 21 when they age out of high school. Right now, within the county, we are only supporting students within the high school. After high school, they go to a different program. That program does take the IEP, so the IEP doesn't go away. That adult program does take the IEP.
Great. Jess?
In Irvine, we transition to consult as the students are going into the adult transition program. Our adult transition program does a really, really good job of incorporating a lot of physical activity into their curriculum. And so we support with consultation, providing a lot of visuals, program recommendations, ideas of what they can do. We've had one APE teacher there for the last couple of years, but this year is the first year where it's being kind of dispersed among us. So there's several of us that are going to be supporting the adult transition program this year. So it'll be fun to see how it goes.
And Patrick, you had a question?
I was just typing it. Melissa, for your district, how many kids do you think the whole district has, and how many kids do you think you have in special ed?
For Jess?
Yeah, for Jessica, sorry.
That is a great question. I have no idea. I would have to look up the numbers. We have a big district. Let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 high schools.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we have 5 high schools now. Our newest high school opened the year I started, I think. No.
And Brad, you have, what is it, like 50 APE teachers?
We're now going to be at 56 APE teachers. And then we have they're called school-based adaptive physical education teachers. They also do general education. And within our county, we have 203 schools. And we have 3,017 students with adaptive physical education services.
Great. And it seems Laura from San Diego Unified, they've got 100,000 students there. They serve about 2,000 students in APE, and they have 39 APE teachers. So it kind of gives you all
I have
idea.
10,000 students in Vallejo and only 2 APE teachers.
Well, we are very glad that you are here to listen to this conversation, because start collecting that data. Yes, needed. So you also had a question about preschool and servicing preschool students. Jess?
Yeah, your letter answered it. Thank you. But if you're not in California, you may not know this, but in the state of California, kindergarten is not a required grade. So parents don't have to send their kid till first grade. Obviously, a lot of people do, and we are expanding in my district our TK and pre-K programs for both GE and SPED. How do you, those that have an active preschool or TK adapted PE presence, how'd you do that? Or have you always done that? Or how can I get started and all that good stuff?
Do you want me? I can go. So IDEA is going to be your biggest friend in this, because in IDEA, as soon as they turn 3, they can access education, and physical education is one of the areas of education, including ELA, math, science, all of that. It's also gross motor development and fundamental motor skills are embedded within the California State PE framework that drives the curriculum for our California teachers. And so because gross motor development and fundamental motor skills are embedded within that framework, by law, according to IDEA, the students can qualify for physical education support as early as the age of 3. And they do not have PE teachers at the preschool, so they have to employ APE teachers to come in and provide the services if it's necessary per assessment for the students starting at the age of 3.
So Patrick, that link I put in the chat here in Zoom, that is gold. That's from US Department of Education. That's the policy saying if they qualify for services, if services are needed, you must provide APE starting at age 3. Brad, anything else to add?
That is gold. Thank you.
I have a ton of resources and documentation. If you would like, you're more than welcome to email me and I can forward it to you.
Okay.
Yeah, just maybe put your email in the chat.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yes. All right. Any other questions for Jess or Brad? Okay. Big thank you to you both to, open these conversations. So important about caseload and about advocating. Thanks, Garth. I'm getting a text message from Garth Tymason about sharing that clarification letter. Much appreciated, everyone, for joining us. I think the resources that Jess and Brad I've shared are invaluable. I've already posted Brad's to the NCPEID, to the Facebook group, this post. I'll also put it on the NCPEID website, and then same with Jess's resources when she gets those to me. Thank you also very much. We'll be back again in September. Our topic's going to be advocacy, and actually one of Brad's APE teachers, Matt Barker, is going to be on and share all the different things he does. So if you've heard of Netflix, Just Adapt It, the APE newsletter that he's doing, he's really doing a great job of advocating for the AP profession. And then we'll also get someone from higher ed to talk about ways NCPEID has advocated, for example, like in Alaska and Portland, Oregon, in those situations to advocate for the profession. So that's what we have in store for September. Thank you all again. Big kudos to Jess and Brad. Much appreciated. Thanks all for joining. Until next time. Bye all.